I saw an article in the Washington Post about a lawsuit in regard to property of images. The situation struck me as interesting because as a former model and performer, I am aware of rights or lack of rights regarding my image. This suit involves a lady named Tamara Lanier, who is 54 and a retired probation officer from Norwich, Connecticut. And when she was a young girl, her mother would tell her stories of her great-great-great-grandfather, who was a slave and taught other slaves to read and would read them the Bible. The thing is, all she had were these stories, but when she got some help to research her ancestors, they came to the conclusion that images of her great-great-great-grandfather were found in an attic, in a cabinet, and they became displayed at Harvard University. Lanier tried calling Harvard and demanded that the images are her ancestor and that the images belong to her. And as you could imagine, if anyone has been to a university, people working in the office of these administrations can be very difficult to deal with in general, being very dismissive and unhelpful. So that was her general result, but it becomes even more difficult to deal with when you're demanding that images the university holds belong to you. It's not something that can be addressed over the phone. So instead of going to the university and trying to see the images of her ancestors and find the right people to talk to, Lanier is pursuing legal action. The claim is simple, said Josh Koskoff, one of Lanier's attorneys. You took something, it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me, and I want it back. Okay, so this is where I lost her. I mean, you must sufficiently prove that it is in fact your ancestors, but more importantly, even if they are your ancestors, the images don't belong to you. Copyright just doesn't work that way. Harvard spokesman Jonathan Swain responded, the university has not yet been served, and with that is in no position to comment on this lawsuit filing. Harvard officials did not immediately respond to questions about the professor who commissioned the photos or about whether anything is known about the identities or descendants of the people in the images. So we are all pretty aware of how leftist universities have become, and I find it interesting that even with all of that, the left still act like these universities are run by white supremacists. The article states that the case comes at a time when many universities, including Harvard, are delving into their past and providing a more complete reckoning of the role enslaved people and money from the slave trade played in their early years. Some schools are also investigating and acknowledging work done by faculty members to promote white supremacy. So universities, including Harvard, are digging up into their past to acknowledge where there may have been white supremacy, and I just don't really understand this. I mean, really, what's the point? You're not that way now, so why dredge up all of this? But anyway, my point is that Lanier is acting like they are still in the 1800s. Ben Crump, another of Lanier's attorneys, called on Harvard to denounce slavery and white supremacy if they have any courage. When enslaved people were first freed, they didn't own any property, Crump said. And 169 years later, Harvard is telling Renty's descendants he still doesn't own his image. He is still a slave. Again, copyright doesn't work that way. Copyright laws are so complex. I've looked this up before, but virtually every original prints of historical photographs published before January 1923 is now in the public domain. And in regards to being in the photograph, that doesn't mean you own the image. The image belongs to the person that created the image in a fixed, tangible way, i.e. the photographer. Copyright laws can only really be reviewed by the proper lawyers, but I don't see how Lanier has any standing to say that the images belong to her and expect damages. I mean, damages, really? I just see so many flaws in Lanier's train of thought. And another thing that comes to mind is how lucky she is to know about her ancestors and how exciting it is to see them, especially on display at Harvard. I mean, I don't know any of my ancestors. I am first-generation American, and I don't know any relatives past my one grandmother. I don't even have any aunts or uncles. And if you dig up my family's history and where we come from, we're Slavs, so we were slaves of Islamic nations coming into the Mediterranean. But really, it would be just an interesting thing to know about individuals in my family and their story. I think Lanier could cooperate with Harvard a little bit more and provide proof of lineage and be proud of her ancestors and keep the memory of them alive in collaboration with Harvard. I mean, that is powerful stuff, far more powerful than just hoarding the images where they could potentially get damaged and not have the potential to spread his legacy throughout history in the Peabody Museum in Harvard for future generations. If you like that and want to see more, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the little bell so you never miss another video.